What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to BrickTalk, the LEGO investing podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing the rumored delay in retirement for 6 of the most popular Star Wars investing sets this year. But before any of that, we're going to do some good set, bad set.
All right, David, my first set is this Ideas sitcom set, The Office 21336. Can you guess why I'm doing this set today?
This was a set that was recently pushed up in retirement.
This one is moving forward a year, so now it's something to be thinking about. So what's that going to be? Yeah, just over a 2-year shelf life. Not terrible for an Idea set. 15 minifigures, all of them are exclusive. $120 seems a little expensive. It hasn't been on sale that often, but now that it's going to be retiring at the end of this year, it could be flying under the radar. And for me personally, I think there's a lot to like about this set. Now, The Office is one of my favorite TV shows. It is the most watched sitcom in history. Let's look at some of the other sitcom sets. So we've got Central Perk. This one's gone up a little bit. I know Matthew Perry passing away has influenced the price on these Friends sets. And then we've also got the Friends Apartment, and this one's jumped up a fair amount. Remember, both of those you could get on really good discounts. And then we've got Seinfeld, which hasn't moved much, but another one that you could have got on a really good discount.
One note on the Seinfeld, the brick set price is showing the brick link price of $80, but actually on eBay and Amazon, it's way up over $100, over $120. I had 5 of this set and I sold them for around $120 each. So when we're looking at prices, it's good to check multiple sources.
Absolutely, and I bet you got those on a pretty good discount, probably around $50 instead of the $80.
No, I actually picked them up post-retirement, so I paid close to full price, but I was okay doing it because at that point I already had data showing that the set's price was climbing up diagonal, and I was able to pick it up under MSRP, sell them within 6 months. That's how we do it.
It's a different kind of savings. You didn't save on the price, but you saved on the time that your money was tied up and the time that you were holding onto that set. So now I got to show you one more sitcom set. I'd be remiss not to show you The Big Bang Theory. This was an Ideas also, 60, and it's around 200 or so. Let's get back to the Office set here. This is the one, honestly, for me that looks the best because it's packed full of Easter eggs. We've got Pam's teapot that comes back in the last season. Kevin spilled the chili. We've got Michael's pyramid scheme over here. The stapler and Jello, of course, that was an absolute must in this set. So there's so many good little Easter eggs. And I mean, I've seen the whole series through at least 3 times. And so the historical data shows that this one will at least do okay. And if you pick it at a good price and you don't have a long time that you're holding it personally, then I think you can do all right on it.
I'm surprised to see it moving forward a year in retirement. You'd think if it's selling well, LEGO would want to keep that around. More on that later, but I'm right with you. I think this is going to be a great set. I'm here to hit you with another Ideas set, and this one is a lot different. This is LEGO Ideas 21340 Tales of the Space Age, launched in May of 2023. It is scheduled to retire at the end of the year. That'll be a 19-month shelf life. If we look at the brick set review, I think it is meant to represent different eras in the exploration of space. So we have comets here. So you got a lander, a little rover there. Number 3 here in the pink, you have a rocket blasting off. That's a nice use of parts there. And this must be Saturn. And one of the most common complaints I see from LEGO collectors is this set is too big. I'm running out of shelf space. I think part of the reason why the art sets, especially like the world map, have gone off to a great start is for your adult collectors with limited space around their house. You can put your sets up on the wall. But even though this set has had a very short shelf life, I don't think it's going to do that well. A lot of people see that Ideas banner and they just jump to conclusions. They think it's going to do amazingly. Looking back at some old Ideas sets, I think the one everyone thinks of is the old fishing store. We also had the Barracuda Bay, another Ideas set. Those sets were appealing on their own. They were not appealing because the Ideas theme is some sort of cohesive collection. Ideas sets are unique. That's kind of the whole point. And anytime I see somebody's Lego city, half the time they have this old fishing store. It's one of LEGO's best minifigure scale buildings with the whole interior, so many details, accessories, Easter eggs. It's very charming. This Tales of the Space Age has none of that. It's a weird set. I don't see the appeal, and I don't think it's going to be a good investment.
There's some sets that are just very visually appealing and kind of boring in a sense, right? Like, yeah, it's not a bunch of detail, it's not a bunch of minifigures, and so I think that it's a very well-liked set, and I think it will be a very well-liked set for years to come. Simple bricks with a little bit of detail, nice colors, it looks fantastic. But I agree though, I think the appreciation for this set is going to be a slow burn, and sometime in the future people are going to look back at that and say, wow, that was a really unique idea, that was different, that seems so simple, but it looks so great.
It's also just a $50 $20 price point, which is one of the lowest ideas price points. And we don't get a lot of ideas sets at that low price point. So there's not a lot of comps. I think it's a big question mark for people. Big gamble on this one. So even though it has a short shelf life, I'm not going to be investing in it.
All right, let me go on to my next one. All right, so we're talking Commander Cody, that's the first one, and Princess Leia. So these are the two helmets that are still on the retirement list this year. The reason I'm bringing these up and doing a little circle back on, are these good set or bad set, is because now it sounds like the Darth Vader helmet is getting delayed another year. This helmet's going to be around forever. So we'll come back to that. But for these two, good set or bad set, right? Historically, all the helmets have been great. People are saying, though, we're starting to hear the chatter that, with the theme coming to an end, there isn't as much buzz. There aren't new sets to remind people to go get the old sets. With this theme dying out, there were a lot of questions around these two where people were saying, I don't know if people are really going to be interested anymore. But I think now that Darth Vader's hanging around for another year, these two will be even slightly better investments. Your thoughts?
Well, I must say I agree with you. The Darth Vader remaining on the shelves another year to accompany the Mandalorian helmet, I think is going to keep the helmet theme relevant, and especially the Cody, because he's a clone commander. I was a little bit harsh to Cody in our tier ranking. I want to kind of make amends with Cody. I think he's going to do a little bit better than I anticipated. For Commander Cody, I see high supply because it's been heavily discounted, but also I see some significant demand. For the Princess Leia Boushh, I'm not so sure. I'm seeing low demand. Of course, there is going to be lower supply, that being a Target exclusive and everything, but it's all about the confluence of supply and demand, right? Commander Cody is high supply, medium demand. Princess Leia Boushh is going to be low supply, low demand. What's going to be the better investment? I don't know. Generally speaking, I like to invest in sets that have a high volume, a lot of sales velocity going through the market every month, so that I'm not stuck holding something that maybe I think it's really cool or it maybe technically is really rare, but if nobody wants it, I'm not going to be able to sell it.
Two comments. One is there's a number of people out there, because I watch all the other Lego investing and reselling YouTube videos, number of folks out there that think that the Boushh is actually going to outperform Commander Cody and be one of the best performing helmets because it's another Target exclusive.
Yeah, but where's the demand coming from? Who's buying it?
So I lean towards the Commander Cody helmet over Boushh, but I think they're both going to be, decent investments. So if I recall when we were doing our rankings, I was a lot nicer to the Commander Cody helmet, and actually Commander Cody himself. Do you remember that correctly? I was much nicer to him than you were?
I'm sensing some entrapment. My lawyer has advised me not to answer that question. That's what it comes down to. People are drawn to characters because they see themselves in characters. That's why the helmets are so cool. You see Boba Fett, you feel like a rogue, anti-establishment, cool guy bounty hunter. You see the Stormtrooper helmet, it makes you want to blast everything except for the target. People like these helmets, I think, because they're drawn to the iconic Star Wars characters that have been relevant for decades. The dioramas just don't have that. They reference a scene in the movies, maybe it's an iconic scene. I don't even think they've done a great job at choosing the best scenes, but people can't relate to them. And so I don't think there's the same desire to collect the dioramas and to obsessively complete the collection and spend double or triple the original MSRP to get that last helmet, because there's just not the appeal. I have another set that I want to talk about, and this is a fun one because this set is not retiring at the end of this year. It's actually retiring in July, just 2 months from now. This is an extremely cool set that is not going to be a very good investment. 71425 Diddy Kong's Minecart Ride. This is a Super Mario expansion set, launched August of 2023. It's going to retire at the end of July this year. That is just a 12-month shelf life. $110 US for 1,157 pieces. Looking here on Amazon, we can see it's available for $105, but that's actually from a third-party seller. And the reason for that is that this set has gone 50% off on Walmart. So a bunch of third-party sellers have picked this set up for around $50, and now they're going to be unloading those on Amazon. Looking here on Camel 3X, this is not what we like to see. Green line is MSRP, third-party sales down as low as $86 at the lowest point. So this set has never sold on Amazon over its MSRP. Looking here at the sales volume, we see only 100 plus bought in the last month. I think what this data is telling us is that the Mario theme has a more limited appeal than certain other themes like modular buildings, Star Wars, Harry Potter. And it's a darn shame because it's a really cool set. Funky Kong goes for $20, Diddy Kong for $19, this Mole Miner for $8, and the Snaggles for $8. It's pretty good value out of these minifigures. I don't like investing in the Mario electronic game thing, but just as a playset or a display set, I totally think this set stands on its own. I love this set, but I think all the data we're seeing is showing that it's going to be a really bad investment when it retires next month.
Anytime that there's an electronic component added to a set, pass on it. Video is a good example. These Mario sets are a good example. But I will admit, I did buy two too. And mine were, I think, 55% off at my local Walmart. But that's because my kids love the Mario sets. So they build and play, make a whole scene. And I was like, hey, it's Train. And at that price, at 55% off, if my kids didn't want to open them up and play with them, which I know they do, I'm sure I can make $10 on them. I mean, we've seen that on the camel chart. But outside of that, they're not an investment, but it is a really, really good set for the theme and for playability. You know, I love that Lego made it. It's a great set for the theme, and kids, you know, go bananas over that set. All right, David, my third and final set. I'm going back to the ideas theme, and this one's going to be a quick discussion. There's good data, and I think it's a good set. I'll tell you that right up front.
You're just going to spoil it like that?
It's the Ideas Jazz Quartet 21334. If we look here at the Amazon pricing, dotted green line means it's been out of stock. Let's hit the third party new. Boom. Look at that. Out of stock, selling for above MSRP on the regular. It's a $100 set, 150 or more a couple of times. It's very unique. It's not overly flashy. It's all brick built. You know, there's some sharp edges, some studs here and there. So when you look at it, you're like, okay, this is definitely Lego. That's the appeal. You got to build this. But there is some really exquisite design to this set. Just look at the instruments. This piano build over here is amazing. The little trumpet is so simple but looks great. The drum set with the cymbals, the painted gold pieces, fantastic. And then the stand-up bass, the shaping on that with the strings, the way that they built these characters and all the different body part elements, and especially the faces, you can see some personality in these. To me, it's simple, but then the details and the overall quality and just the, you know, refined displayability of this set comes across very powerfully. I don't think there's a lot of demand for it, but the data shows that it's going up in price when it's out of stock.
The one part that always stood out to me when I looked at this set is the side of that trumpet player's pants with that gray shield piece there. And I had no idea that the camel chart looked like that. I hadn't been considering this set. It is scheduled to retire.
Jazz just puts a smile on people's face, and so there is broad appeal. You know, maybe there's not high demand for this set because clearly it's flying under the radar. And yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a slower burn. You know, if you can pull these for $65, maybe $70 after all of your promos and everything, you might have a hold time of less than a year. But if you want to hold them for 2 or 3 years, then, you know, you might be able to triple your money on these.
One thing that's strange is this set has gone out of stock at Amazon a lot for a serious duration of its shelf life. I mean, it's been out of stock almost as much as it's been in stock, almost never selling below the MSRP. I'd be curious to see what kind of sales come out. So I think you've just blown the lid off the best kept investing secret this year. Thanks, Kevin. I think a couple of people are going to be very unhappy with you.
Sorry, I don't mean it. I just enjoy talking about it.
Now, all this data that we're using is publicly available. We use a couple of the same websites every episode: BrickTalk, eBay, Camel3X. These are all free websites. All it takes is your time to do the research and a little bit of critical thinking to think about supply and demand, what makes certain sets appealing, collectability, things like that. This next set I want to talk about is a Star Wars set that will be heavily affected should these rumored delays in retirement turn out to be true. This is the 75359 332nd Troopers Clone Battle Pack. As you recall, in our tier list, I had this set in absolute winner Lambo Fire tier, and I still believe that to be true. Launched in August of 23, it is still scheduled to retire at the end of 2024. That'll be a 16 or 17 month shelf life. This is one of the best battle packs in recent memory. Of course, there was a lot of discontent about Captain Vaughn when he came out, not having a red visor, no waist cape, helmet holes, everything like that. These 332nd Troopers are tremendously popular. What that original trooper from the AAT can tell us is that there's huge demand for a clone trooper that looks like this, and I think once this set leaves shelves, this is going to be one of the best Star Wars sets this year.
All right. You keep warming me up to these battle packs, and you know, I'm not as excited about them as you are, but the data, you know, the proof is in the pudding. The one thing that'll be interesting is because the 501st is going to push back a year, now clearly everybody's just going to pile into this one. So there will be a lot of supply, but the demand is there. And, you know, those battle packs typically do pretty good. So you keep selling me on it. I'm in on it, and I want to get them on sale, obviously.
We don't want to overthink things. I'm not sure that so many investors will be piling in now that there's only one battle pack retiring. I just have a feeling that this is going to go out of stock before the end of the year. And if that happens, I mean, we know the demand is there. And if the supply is lower than anticipated, easy $30 battle pack real quick. Hey everybody, it's me from the future. The recording actually died right as we were trying to transition into our main topic. And to join us for that main topic, we actually have Shane from BrickBucks joining us for a 3-person discussion. And in addition to his BrickBucks YouTube channel, Shane also runs a paid Lego investing program called BrickBucks Ignite. I joined Ignite just a couple of months ago because, well, I want to scale up my Lego investing business, and I gotta say the results have blown me away. I've been really impressed. If you sign up using the link in the description below, you will get 1 month for free. And then should you decide to continue your subscription after that, BrickTalk will get a little bit of a kickback from your subscription. So it's a great way to support the podcast. We would not endorse this product if we didn't wholeheartedly recommend it. So definitely check that out if you are interested in getting a little more serious and scaling up your Lego investing business. Without further ado, we're gonna sit down with Shane from BrickBucks and talk about these retirement extensions that everyone is so up in arms about and get his perspective.
What's up, guys? What's up? I'm so excited to be here. Firstly, like the fact that the 3 of us are in the same place, how awesome is this?
It's sweet. As we've talked about on prior videos, the Star Wars retirement list this year was originally 33 sets, which is huge. Now that 6 or 7 have dropped off the list, you would think that investors would be concentrating their capital into the remaining retiring class. What can we say about going deep or going wide so early when the retirement list can still change early on in the year like this?
We need to think differently about deep versus wide depending on when you want to start buying. If you go really wide, in other words, you diversify, a lot, then the risk of something getting pushed back, it's probably not going to hurt you a whole lot. You could be buying pretty much all year. A couple of sets get pushed back. It's frustrating. Is it going to move the bottom line of your investing business? Probably not. I think, the sets that you pick are going to be way more important. But I think if you're someone who goes deep on the SKUs that you buy and, you buy 100 units of 10 sets, then it hurts a little more when we get retirement dates pushed out. You will hear Lego investors out there in some of the public communities talking about how retirement dates don't matter, right? We should just buy all the time because then you'll guarantee the quantities that you want. And, as soon as the set comes out, I start to buy it. I think that's madness. Personally, I live by the retirement list because I'm someone who wants to compound my inventory. And I think that the easiest way to achieve compounding is to shorten your hold time at the start of your purchase, right? Not at the end, because if you shorten it at the end, it means selling sooner. And you don't want to sell too soon, right? If we sold TIE Fighter Pilot too soon, we miss out on another $100 on the set. So instead, you buy it closer to retirement. So the way I kind of think about that, if you're wanting to go deep, the second half of the year is a better time to really start to buy, or to at least do a lot of your heavy buying. You could enter into a position mid-year. Right around May is a good time to start to really kind of get crisp on what you want to do. But the way I think about the calendar year is like the first couple of months of the year, I'm buying last year's stuff. I'm buying the stuff that retired in December because there's zombie stock, they're still in stock, and I'm trying to get those deals. And then I transition to what I kind of look at as like a selling period and an inventory management period, where I kind of manage stuff, manage the inventory, and then do some shipments. But then around mid-year, right around now, is when I start to transition back into, okay, now what's my hit list for the year? What are the sets that I want to buy? And the next couple of months is where I'll start to get clear on how deep I want to go in each set. But the retirement list typically still has changes throughout the summer, right? We can still expect some more changes. I think, typically, and I did a kind of a review or an analysis of the changes last year and found that they stopped around September. So at that point, you could be pretty confident in your buying. But definitely, I like the way you're thinking about it being deep versus wide and how that changes your approach to it, David, because I 100% agree.
Shane, that video where you analyzed which months have the highest volume of changes to the retirement list, I actually just watched that one like 3 or 4 days ago. I was doing some yard work, had it in my ears, and I thought that was great. We know the retirement list will change, and we know that it generally changes earlier in the year than later in the year. But to have you sit down and put some numbers to our broader thought process was really valuable, to be like, okay, so it peaks here and it ends here, so to throw that out there, that was definitely one that I enjoyed. And there's tons of videos on there. I'm getting through them, but it takes a while because there's so much great content on there. But David, I want to come back to you though. Dude, on your intro, like, did you forget that these are like the 7 Star Wars sets right now? I mean, after these 7 aren't retiring at the end of this year, the rest of the Star Wars retirement list is basically gutted. I mean, there might might be one or two good ones out there, but man, talk about the undersell, David. Like, these are the sets. We have a major pivot on our hands, which is fine. We'll, all good. We'll be fine. There will still be great sets out there. The 332nd Clone Trooper Battle Pack certainly gets a little more of my attention. The Star Wars mechs get a little bit more of my attention. The retirement list for Star Wars is gutted right now. Did Lego decide they just want to like take a year off from producing new Star Wars sets? They're like, we're good. Let's go on to another theme for a little while, So this is a big change. Pretty wild. So Shane, question for you. Compared to previous years, I assume that this change is one of the more significant ones that you've seen in a while. Do you expect any of these sets potentially to actually come back?
If I could interject, I don't think it's very common for sets to leave the list and come back on.
Yeah, I think that Lego Group are very smart with this stuff, right? Like it's all based on data. It's all based on sales volume. It's based on predictions of why do they want to retire something that seems like the demand is going to carry into at a certain level, because all sets will carry into the future. That's how we invest in them, right? That's why it's so great to be a Lego investor. But there's a certain level that the Lego Group are kind of like their ears perk up and they're like, we don't want to let that go, right? Like this is too strong. And when they make that decision, I think it's very rare that they go back on it. I don't like to speculate a whole lot on my Lego investing business, right? And the way I approach everything really is I have a phrase that I say to myself, and it's when in doubt, move on, which basically means I want certainty in my decision making in my business. And if there's, a possibility of something coming back to being 2024, I ignore it because I don't like possibilities, right? I want kind of a lot more certainty. This basically rules out these sets for me. And I think after this conversation today, I'm not going to mention these sets again this year. Like this is going to be, they're dead to me now, right? It's like, I don't care about any set that's not very confidently going to retire this year. I take a very harsh stance on that. I don't really look at next year's retirement list at all for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's very subject to change and really not solidified until we get to mid next year. But secondly, if it's not retiring this year, it's not even part of my filtration system when it comes to picking sets, right? I don't even look at it. It gets filtered out immediately. And so these sets now for me have just been filtered out of thought. But it is sad, right? Because we had a couple of really good sets on this list. Sets that I think a lot of us would have been investing in and we're already investing in. The Star Destroyer, for example, I was very excited to see what's going to happen with the first wave of the highly displayable ships. I think it's an incredible direction that the Lego Group have taken with those sets, taking the idea of the helmet series and the idea of the diorama series and applying it to the ships at that kind of scale. I think it's fantastic. And I love that series so far. So I was excited to see what was going to happen with the first one to retire, and not always, but with the first retiree of a new series that has significant demand, we can see a massive boom in price, right? We can see a stellar performance with those sets if the demand is there. And with these sets, it is there. So that was on the hit list before even going too deep on the numbers. Like I knew from day one that was going to be a purchase. So it's a little sad for that one to go. And there's a couple on the list that I definitely wish, we were seeing to retire around Q1 next year. I'll start to think about this year's retirement list. And for the first half of the year, I'll be analyzing those sets again. The shelf life of those sets will be a year longer at that point. Does that mean I will not consider them? Absolutely not. I don't see shelf life as a deal breaker. It is one of the signals that I look at when I'm thinking about picking sets. And this, I don't know if you guys have kind of seen differently or if you'd agree with this, but I've found that short shelf life can impact return a little bit more than longer shelf life. I do think it impacts it, but I haven't seen cases where just because a set had a 5-year shelf life, it was not a candidate for investing. I think we need to remember why it had a 5-year shelf life, right? Sets that are kept around for a long, long time is because of the demand. New York skyline architecture has been around since 2016. Does that mean it's definitely not a candidate for investing? No, in my opinion, the reason it's been on the shelves for 8 years is because the demand is so strong on the set. And after it retires, the demand will continue to be strong on the set. Caveat though, if they end the Skyline series of architecture sets, demand will be reduced over time because new marketing is not coming out of the new sets that are making people go back and buy New York. But it just comes into the back of my mind, and I kind of think to myself, does everybody who want this set already have one? Is it possible the demand will not be that strong in retirement because it had a strong shelf life? Yeah, absolutely, it's possible. And we do have to think about that, but it's not everything. And I would be looking at the data. I'd be looking at things like Amazon sales rank and those things coming up to the retirement to check if the demand is still strong on the set. Check those fundamentals again, and don't let my assumptions just because of shelf life steer me in the wrong direction, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. Shane, you touched on a really good point, which is something that I also think about, which is the market for this particular set saturated? Does everyone who want one already have one? With certain intellectual properties based on movies, Disney, Star Wars, you have to know the relative size of the fan base. And this is where things like Google Trends come in handy. We just talked about The Office today on the podcast. You weren't here for it, but we talked about the Office Ideas set getting pushed up in retirement. The Office is tremendously popular. Kevin said it's the most popular sitcom of all time. And that set having just over a 2-year shelf life, I'd be willing to bet not every Office fan has got their hands on that set. Many Office fans will never even know that set existed until after it retires. Something like New York, as you say, 8-year shelf life, but New York is huge. New York will still be relevant in 5 years and 10 years. It's always in the news. That's also why it's one of the longest lasting Lego shelf lives, I think, of all time. Another question I wanted to ask you about, Shane, with the Vader helmet being pushed back to 2025, that leaves 2 helmets retiring this year, the Commander Cody and the Boushh so far. Of course, the list is subject to change. Do you think that the Vader being held back keeps helmets more relevant, and that could be kinder to the Cody and the Boushh?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, I love that question because this is a more advanced way of thinking, David. I think it took me a few years to start thinking this way with Lego investing, which is we all know that collectability is important for demand, right? We know that sets that have similar sets, the demand gets pulled up because of the similar sets existence, right? The helmet series is one of the greatest examples of this. You cannot buy one helmet series set. And if you're in any of the Lego fan forums or discussion groups, anytime anyone posts a picture of their helmet set, it is next to another one, right? It's such strong collectability on those sets. They just look so good as a collection on a shelf. So that's what we learn early in our Lego investing journey, right? Is collectability is important. What took me a few more years to understand is that collectability changes over time, firstly, based on what gets released that year. And the reason that happens is because Lego Group are pushing so much money into marketing the new sets. And the store employees all around the world are talking about the new sets. And if they're talking with customers about the new sets, they're talking about the series of sets as well, right? If a new set comes out, they're talking about, do you collect the helmet series sets? Did you get the Stormtrooper? I know it's been gone a couple of years, but it's a pity you missed it. Like, the store employees are selling old retired versions of the sets. Then there's a launch going on for the new one, right? And that's happening all around the world. People are talking to their friends about the new helmet that they bought. Oh, did you miss out on the TIE Fighter pilot a couple of years ago? It's $300 on eBay now, but I just might do it. Like, all of this is happening. And so the new set being released drives the collectability up a lot more on the old stuff that already retired. And then when the series comes to an end, it really starts to reduce down, right? People start to forget about it. I think it's really important for collectability to have current sets available on the shelves. Now, new launches helps a lot, but even if we don't have a new launch, a new helmet in 2025, the existence of a series of sets on the shelf will definitely help the previous ones that have retired. All of them will benefit from it. I think the more the better. Like, if you have one helmet left, people might just buy the one and not really think to go look for others. But if you have 3 on the shelves in the Lego stores and they're like, okay, I'll get Vader and I'll get, Mandalorian, then they're going to be like, oh, I wish I could get Leia, or I wish I could get Commander Cody. And so, yes, I definitely think that helps the retiring sets this year. Caveat that Lego investors need to think about: will it increase the supply of Leia and Cody? Because Lego investors are now not going to buy Vader. And there were a lot of Lego investors that were going to buy Vader. I talked about it in a recent video where I essentially said Vader is one of the ones that I think is going to be underwhelming because I think the supply is going to be strong on it. Sometimes with a set that is like the center of a theme, the biggest character, the most important ship, like the Millennium Falcon, you can get oversupply, right? You can get too many Lego investors think it's going to be the hottest thing ever. That's why Boba Fett helmet did not perform as well as even Scout Trooper helmet did, right? Which is kind of surprising to some people when you think about that. That's why that happened, right? It's supply differences, even though demand on Boba Fett is obviously super strong. So we need to look at the numbers and watch it this year. I still don't think that the supply on those sets will be strong enough for the demand, because I think that the demand on the helmet series overall as a sub theme is just super, super strong. I think they've done a great job on those sets. As an investment, I'm a big fan. So yeah, I know that's a long answer, but that's the way I kind of think about it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love the detail and the thought process you're giving. And kind of along those lines, when the retirement list first came out for this year and we saw that Cody was on it, but Rex was not, a lot of people were scratching their heads saying, wait, well, what's going on here? And my gut reaction was, oh, I kind of like that, right? Having Rex still on the shelves will make people think back to Cody that's already retired. And, those two just naturally pair up. Yeah, David, that was a really good question you asked Shane. And I don't know if you remember, but when we did Good Set, Bad Set not too long ago, I forget who came up with that concept and, who picked those sets for Good Set, Bad Set. Do you remember, David?
I'm sensing once again entrapment. I'm not going to answer that question.
Roll the tape. Shane, I want you to know it was my idea, my question, but I'm happy for David to steal my thunder. Mostly because it gives me an opportunity to poke him.
Yeah.
Well, now he's not stealing the thunder because now we all know.
Right. Shane, you mentioned you approach your business using as much data as possible in an attempt to get as much certainty as possible. On the flip side of that, anecdotal evidence, things like Kevin talking about how you called the Lego store to ask them about the stock of the droid carrier. Anecdotally, I can say on the helmets, when I sell locally, the helmets are among the sets that have the most bundleability. I get buyers asking always about 2 or 3 helmets. Almost never does someone inquire about just one helmet. And so, yeah, that's not data. Individual experience is not evidence of a trend necessarily, but all these things put together, one thing that I keep very close tabs on are Speed Champions fan groups, modular buildings fan groups, to assess the sentiment of currently available sets, retired sets, and new releases. I think there is some value to having your ear to the ground and following along as a fan as well as an investor. I'd be curious to know, Shane, your thoughts on this, because there are different ways to approach Lego investing. Some of us come as a Lego fan, others come as an e-commerce business owner. And sometimes it can be helpful to have that fandom. Sometimes it can mislead you.
You're so right about that. Yeah, I do think it's important to listen, to kind of have your ear to the ground, right? The way I kind of think of it is like there's 2 halves to the coin. One half of it is the data and it's the analytics. And it's, if you look at a spreadsheet, which I do quite a lot in our Ignite program, we have like a database that drives our bots. And that database has a lot of data of, sets with their sales ranks, with their price after a year or price after 2 years, that kind of stuff. What I find is when I'm looking at the spreadsheet, some of the kind of analysis that I do naturally when I'm looking at a set, when I'm feeling a set, when I'm seeing the minifigures and I'm seeing the design, the aesthetics and stuff like that, that doesn't exist, right? When you're looking at just a spreadsheet. And those things are important. I think, funnily enough, as I've gotten more mature in my Lego investing business in the last 2 years, I think I realized that it's even more important than I ever thought before in terms of understanding the sets that you're buying and whether or not the perceived value is there. For example, when you look at a set that costs $100 and it looks like it should cost $30, those are things that you could never tell from a spreadsheet. But if you know Lego and you're looking at, the sets that you're buying and stuff, a lot of the times you have a lot more of a gut instinct on those things and it becomes important. I lean on it a little bit more now than I ever did before when I see certain sets and I'm kind of like, that doesn't look like it should be a $200 set. And what happens when the set triples, or when I expect it to triple in price, right? I want it to get to 500 or 600. Are people going to perceive it's worth that price? I don't think so. The only way I can tell that is by looking at and understanding what's in that box. And a spreadsheet will not tell me that. Being in the communities, understanding the perceived value from the communities, from the fans. Do they love it? Do they hate it? What's the sentiment? That's important stuff, in my opinion. Now, it shouldn't be everything, right? I think some investors actually make that everything. Some Lego investors, especially early. And actually, you know what? Thinking back on it, that's kind of what I did in the start, but I didn't like listen to the communities. I more just took my gut instinct of whether something was good or bad. And I just bought stuff like that. Data is more important, in my opinion, even though this is super important. Data is more important. And the reason data is more important is because the price goes up because of supply and demand. And supply and demand is driven by it's the sales numbers, realistically, right? Is the demand. So if you want to learn about demand of something and you want it to be still in demand when the price is double or the price is triple, you need sustained strong demand right up until the retirement date. We can see those things in data. We can't see those things without data, right? We could ask the store employees, is it selling fast? But then we could call a different store and they could say, oh, it doesn't sell very fast here. It could mislead us a little bit unless we take multiple sources of the data, cross-reference them, understand, the different kind of angles that could be at play and lean on the data more. And I know this audience who are watching this now are very clued into this because that's the way you guys approach your business and that's the way you talk about sets and you look at data. And I do too, but it can't be overstated because, for example, if you look at a set and you you look at the minifigures and you look at the colors and the design and you look at all of the different things that you might want to look at to say, is it a good set or a bad set to invest in? All the different things that might drive the demand, the minifigs, the scene that it's set on, all of those things are actually encapsulated already in the sales. If you look at the sales volume and it is really strong, then it's strong because of those minifigs, because of those, the designs, because of the collectibility, because of the relevance to TV shows or pop culture. Those things are all contributors to the sales. If you just look at the sales, you're seeing the big picture. So I do both. I look at the sales numbers, I look at the actual data, and then I try to think about what's contributing to that demand. Is there a TV show coming next year that could impact the demand? Is it collectible with other sets that are similar? Does it have great unique minifigs? Like all these things contribute to those sales, but you still got to look at the sales.
I like how you're taking the questions and stretching them. You're saying, all right, you think about this here, but then you got to think about this next step, or you got to think over in this other angle. So I love this conversation, and it got my gears turning. For me, my Lego investing, I would still classify at the hobby level. And then for David, not that I want to speak for him, but I know that David is further along than me. He mentioned earlier that he's converting from eBay over to Amazon, and I know David has more inventory than I have. And then Shane, David is doing great. And then Shane, this is one of your many businesses. And so you treat this as a business. And so that's kind of cool with the three of us coming together, right? We're all at different stages of the journey. We're all rowing in the same direction, but our audience can hear the different perspectives of the different stages. So my story over the last few months is that I got into it because, I love Lego. My kids love Lego. I had them growing up. I love building with them. And I just started seeing sets out there that I'm like, hey, I'm going to buy a few of these because I can feel a gut that I know this one's going to be a good investment. And why not? It's fun to put one away. Maybe I'll sell it someday. Maybe I'll love having an unopened copy 20 years from now. So it's just dabbling, right? We talk about the data side, but we also talk about the anecdotal, just that talking to the community and feeling that out. That was the strength that I had. What I didn't really do up until a couple of years ago was diving into that data. And so my value in your Ignite program is saying to myself, I know that I'm good at this, but I haven't got so comfortable yet with the data yet to have that confidence that, okay, I can go buy 50 of this set. And so now when I'm in your program, I hear other people, I hear your videos, I see the data. And because of my past experience, I can immediately know, hey, that passes the sniff test. I've got enough knowledge that when I hear little nuggets and that when I hear what you're describing, I don't need to go learn the whole new language. I already know the language, but now I can connect the dots, right? And so my early stage in the Ignite program is really just building my confidence for something that I already know that I can do. And it's giving me that support network that I'm like, all right, I can pull the trigger and take this next step forward to turn my smaller hobby into a larger hobby and then into a business someday. And that is absolutely my goal. And so what it's doing for me is it's saving a lot of time. And so in your program, we talk about all the different stuff, but it's that data. And like you described, it's that supply and demand data, and specifically those bots. I mean, it's great. You can go into a bot and you can immediately, you can put in a set number and you've got that data table that pops up all of your supply and demand data. And so if I already know how to interpret it, but I don't want to go collect all that data, it's amazing the value that all that pulls together. And the value in the Ignite program is astonishingly massive.
I think if you are on the fence or if you're wondering, should I try this out? One of my favorite features about Ignite is the automated deal notifications. And you can set notifications for certain sets. You can say, hey, tell me when XYZ set goes at 20% discount or 27% discount or 37% discount. Some arbitrary, you can put in your parameters and be instantly notified the moment it goes on sale. If you're operating at a certain scale, getting to that deal the fastest and saving an additional $10 per set, and say you're purchasing 100 sets, well then that deal, that marginal benefit to you is worth $1,000. And that's less than the annual cost of an Ignite subscription. I think about it like that.
Yeah, I love the perspective, guys. And firstly, I got to say, I love having you both in the group and, having your perspectives, because your experiences and the way you analyze sets, I think perfectly aligns. And when we have the data, we can start to compare sets very, very quickly and very, very easily decide on, which sets we want to invest in, and then use deal trackers to get them at the absolute lowest price. One of my favorite memories of that is the UCS A-Wing. I think it went on sale for like $138 or something. Like it was dropped significantly in price for probably an hour. The reason I loved it so much is because our Ignite group jumped on it. Everyone was all over it because our bots started pinging about it. But nobody in the public Facebook group, which BrickBox also has a public Facebook group, which, you know, is kind of another one of my babies. So I want the people in the public group to succeed, of course, but I thought it was so interesting that nobody mentioned it. So like all of the igniters were all over this $138 UCSA wing and nobody publicly knew about it. That's, you know, the power of having the tools, right? To have bots pinging you when an incredible deal actually happens. But really, it's just all about data and coming together with other people who also understand that it's all about data. And we have an award system, which actually is right here. So this is the $100,000 award for people who hit the six-figure club. We have 21 winners inside of the Ignite group so far. So 21 of our members have a six-figure Lego business, and it's just Lego. We don't allow them to win the award if 100K is sold, if is shoe sales. We actually check that it's Lego sales, and it's significant to be surrounded by people who are actually building it into a real viable business.
Yeah, I know you had mentioned earlier, early in the year, you haven't bought a single set for May the 4th because you're not in acquisition mode. You're in looking at last year's retired sets still and selling mode.
I'm not buying last year's stuff anymore. I was probably up until March. Definitely through January and February. I've started my analysis for the year, but I haven't really gone like super gung-ho on it yet. Typically right around now is when I really start to finalize my hit list or really kind of know exactly what I'm buying for the year. May 4th is something that in previous years I've gone very heavy on, and I definitely don't knock it. Like I don't think people should avoid May 4th because it's too early. I know we had some disappointments this year because people 2 weeks ago were buying some of these sets heavily that just got pushed out. That's not why I didn't buy on May 4th. It's part of it. It is part of it because I do know that there was a risk, of course. In May, there is always a risk that the retirement list is not solidified. But the other part of it is just the expected hold time, right? Even if those sets did retire at the end of this year, I want to buy them a little closer to their retirement so I reduce the hold time and focus my energy earlier in the year on preparing to sell. What I found from kind of analyzing a lot of set prices over time is that a lot of people think that Q4 is the best time to sell because of price. A lot of people think that the price goes up in Q4. The people here before me seem to be talking about Q4 like it was everybody should wait for Q4 to sell. And then I started questioning that and actually asking for the data on that. And when I looked at things like Amazon price charts, I realized that in Q4, we typically see prices drop on average. Now, this doesn't apply to all sets because some sets, like Speed Champion sets, for example, are opposite. Speed Champion sets actually can have a bump in Q4, not always as well. So everything I say here is averages and doesn't apply to every set. But on average, from analyzing a handful of sets, I made a video in the Ignite group about it, and I looked at like 20 sets throughout the video, and every single one, and by the way, I pulled them at random, and every year there was a notable little decline in the price during Q4. Now, it's not substantial, and it's not the kind of thing where, oh no, like the price is going to crash. That doesn't happen. It just has a little dip. I found that the best time to sell was actually somewhere around September, around August, September. If you want the highest price, that was around the time of the year that had the highest price. The reason that happens is because the supply gets a boom coming into Q4. Most Lego investors list all their inventory and they all start to undercut each other. Yes, demand booms in Q4, but it sometimes doesn't boom enough to cater to some of that penny pinching going on with the sellers because the inventory spikes. And then throughout Q4, because we have like a 2-month period of really, really strong demand, that supply all starts to sell down, and especially the lowball sellers all sell out. And then you have the price start to go up again in January. So, and you'll notice this if you look at a lot of price charts, you know, you have this little drop on average, and then you have this little rise again in Q1, spring, or into the winter and spring of the following year. But in around the summertime, we have low supply because a lot of Lego investors are not selling. And actually also in Q1, in around February, like is a time where we can see prices actually spiking because a lot of sellers sold everything in Q4 and no one's thinking of listing again or selling again in January, February. And sometimes you can have sustained demand even in the new year, and you can have lower supply but high demand. And so we can see the price going up. So a couple of times a year, actually kind of the unsung heroes that a lot of people don't realize are great to sell, which is kind of Q1 and around Q3 of the calendar year. And Q4 is the best for volume. So if you want to sell 100 units in an afternoon on Amazon, that's when you use Q4. I still sell a lot in Q4, but I also sell periodically throughout the year because I want to try and get higher prices. And then I go for the volume play in Q4.
Yeah, that was one of the most eye-opening videos on Ignite for me. And it made me feel really clear clever. Like I know something that the community doesn't. Like you said, everybody talks about Q4, 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 and there's some truth to that. But when you really look at the data, that is Keepa data, sales data, pricing data, I mean, it's either publicly available data or it's behind a small paywall like Keepa, but it's universal data. It's reliable data. The proof is in the pudding. It's all there. And yet we have this popular consensus that it's all about Q4 and everybody's buying for holiday gifts and things like that. After watching that video, that was one of my favorites from the Ignite group.
That video was only just a sample size. So I took like 20 sets. It was very strong findings, right? It was very obvious what was happening in those 20 sets. But what I still want to do, and what I will hopefully be doing this year, is to do it at the marketplace level. Because recently I've actually started looking at our database a lot more and actually looking at, trends across the entire Lego market. And I'm seeing crazy things. Like when you look at the entire market in a spreadsheet, it becomes so obvious. When we think about the themes, for example, when I first started Lego investing, I just thought, pick a theme that did well in the past. And that was it. I just think about themes. And when you look at the data, you'll start to realize that even within a theme, different price points have different performance.
Oh, yeah.
So for example, in Ninjago, the high price sets do really well in that theme for some reason. The $50, $60 sets don't do as well as some other themes, but the $150, $200 sets, like they do great in that theme and above. There's a handful of different themes that people are snoozing on, but certain price points are incredibly high performers, like outperform a lot of other themes. So you got to start to think about the theme, but then the price point within the theme, the sub $10 sets, the sub $30 sets, the $80 sets, or the $200+ sets, each of them perform differently even within the theme. But when you can look at the entire market and start to see the data is when you start to realize there's hidden gem pockets of opportunity in the world of Lego investing. So this is kind of taken it to a more advanced level, of course, than a lot of people who are hobbyists will want to go. But those who really want to nerd out about it and really want to kind of build it into something substantial, it could be exactly what they want.
I'm eagerly awaiting that video, Shane. So I'll be ready for it.
Yeah, me too. You have tons of videos. How many? You have over 100 videos, maybe even over 200 videos in Ignite at this point, right?
I would say so. Yeah, I do like 3 private videos every month where I kind of go in, I go into detail on strategy, on what I'm doing in my business, how I built my business up, and kind of how I'm running my business and different things. And that'll be kind of the tactics and the strategy that you can use and apply to your own business. And then I have another series of videos in there called the Market Pulse, where I look at performance and marketplace and stuff, but I do it at a level that I would never really do on YouTube, because it's going deeper into the data than the YouTube audience will allow me, right? If I get that nerdy on YouTube, my views are going to be in the, they're going to be tanked. So this is getting real nerdy about this stuff. But yeah, 3 a month.
When we watch those, when we listen to those, there's a lot of eureka moments in those.
Exactly. And there's data points that a lot of people don't really think could be important that actually could turn into being, or do turn into being pretty important. So for example, a set goes out of stock on Amazon. What happens to the price? So like we pull that data in to our bots, right? Because we can see, this set, I think it was the T-Rex Rampage that a couple of years ago retires, the $250 Jurassic World set. Price had this big jump. And that tells me a couple of things. It tells me there's no lowball sellers on the listing. And if there's no lowball sellers, the price will not be kind of anchored down. You can see the demand continues even at that higher price. It just went to 350 overnight and people are still buying it. Those 2 little things are massive in our understanding of how good an investment could be. So those kind of data points are things that if you have like tools to quickly check them, can be really substantial in picking sets.
One instance where Ignite was very helpful to me recently was when sending in my first Amazon shipment, which I just shipped yesterday. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Big milestone.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
And so what I was able to do with those tools is to input my buy price for this certain investment and my sell price, which is just today's Amazon price. In fact, I'll even share, it's the Republic Fighter tank, went on that crazy Black Friday sale. And so now 7 months later, $40 set, the Amazon price has gone to 60. And I was able to put in that with my buy price after Amazon fees, shipping, everything like that, I'm at a 75% ROI after 7 months of hold time, maybe 8 months once they get checked into Amazon and sold and everything. And I think a lot of people might say, oh, you're selling that set too soon. But for me, the benefit of clearing out space in my office, you can see I've moved around some furniture, we're doing some things. Also compounding that capital faster and faster, I decided it wasn't worth it to me to hold those sets another 6 months to maybe get another $10 or $12 on the sale price. And the Ignite tools helped me to make that decision and feel confident making that decision to send in my first batch. So as I'm making the move from a medium reseller to more of a professional reseller, Ignite has been invaluable. The deal alerts, the bots, the mentorship, it pays for itself so many times over.
That's awesome, guys. And I'm really glad that you're enjoying it and finding the value there. And I've been really humbled recently because the success stories that have been pouring in from the group have been insane. And I'm so excited to hear that you just did your first shipment, because that means in the next couple of days, those first sales are ahead of you. The first FBA sales that you see on your seller app, where you pull it up and you see like, you just made sales today and you don't have to do any work. Like they're going to do it for you.
Yeah.
Those kind of little wins, I just love. And, and then seeing people share the screenshot of their sales, and it's amazing. And so I'm very proud of it. It's the most, like, I've done a lot of things with BrickBucks and with this journey. Like I've written a whole book about, and which is one of the hardest things that I've ever done. But the thing that I'm really most proud of is the community that we've built in Ignite, and how helpful everybody is, and success that people are actually getting in their businesses. So I'm really happy to hear that you guys, who are so knowledgeable, are also getting value as well. So it's amazing to hear. So yeah, we'll definitely offer a free month to anybody in your group who wants to check it out, so you can all kind of understand what we're talking about here.
Well, now I'm feeling jealous. You both selling on Amazon and I'm not there yet. I'm feeling left out, but that's good, right? But that's good though. That's a good feeling. That's a motivating feeling. I know I'm going to get there someday, but like I'm feeling that emotion right now going, man, I wish that I was, just sending my first box to Amazon, and then I'm going to get to look on my app, and I'm going to have to live vicariously through David for a little while. But those are the types of emotions that are motivating. Shane, with those 7 sets getting extended to 2024, what other Star Wars sets do you think are already on your hit list or could become on your hit list? Because I think that theme might be a little thin this year, and that we need to look at some other themes. So what are you liking in the Star Wars retirement list right now?
There's a couple of areas where you can increase your probability of doing well. Like certain sub themes, for example, have better track records than others. The Brickhead sets, I think, could be a good area for people to narrow down on, with a lot more kind of certainty about Brickheads in general. It's a theme that just tends to do very, very well. When I look at, as I was mentioning, looking at the entire market in a spreadsheet, Brickheads is consistently one of the top performing themes just based on return on investment overall. So it is a kind of an easy place for people who want to get a lot of certainty. And when you cross Brickheads and Star Wars together, magic happens, right? It's phenomenal when you have such high levels of collectability. I love the Helmet series. It's possibly my favorite series of Star Wars sets of all time, even over UCS, over the dioramas, over the the regular ships that we get. I just love those helmets, and I'm a little biased toward them because the first year that we had helmets retiring, we had the TIE Fighter pilot and the Stormtrooper. I was super gung-ho on them. I talked about them in like 4 different YouTube videos, and was trying to get everyone to get in on them. And the performance of those sets were incredible. So it makes me kind of want to continue to commit to my past self and see it through and keep investing in the Helmet series sets. I've done well on a good number of them at this point, and I do think that Leia has potential. I think there's question marks for some people over the design of that helmet, but it's the only way we can get Leia. We can't get, they're only doing helmets. They're not doing faces. So in the Boushh helmet, it's really the only way we can add Leia to our collection of Helmet series sets. But that set being exclusive to Target so that it can't really have oversupply makes me like it a lot, even if there are some people who don't like the design. And the Boushh helmet also may not be the best representation of Leia because it's such a small piece of the trilogy. And so some people won't think that it's the best way to add Leia to your shelf. And if someone walks into the room and sees that next to your other sets, they won't even realize it's Leia. Of course, Star Wars fans would. So there are some of those things that people are kind of questioning about the Leia Boushh helmet and whether the demand will continue to be there in the long term. I love the fact that whenever a set is exclusive, the quantity that are manufactured is always going to be lower. The quantity of that set that are going to be out there in the aftermarket will be lower than Cody. It's just the fact of the manufacturing. And when they're only manufacturing to serve the demand of a single retailer, plus Lego stores, they make less of them. So I like Leia a lot. I don't like it as much as TIE Fighter pilot and Stormtrooper. Do I even like it as much as Scout Trooper? Probably not. I think I like it a little more than Dark Trooper helmet, which was another Target exclusive and took a little longer, but it is getting up there at this point and it is turning into, a reasonable investment. So I think Leia is a pick that I would call out there. The dioramas need a little more time to watch what happens with last year's. They have a lot of zombie stock out there on the dioramas, which is causing that price to take a while to move. And so I'm curious what's going to happen when we really see the diorama start to lift off, and what that means for the next retirees and whether people jump in or not.
David, I saw you reacting when Shane was, so on the dioramas. So Shane, David and I have a ongoing feud here over the dioramas. I love them. But David, I saw you celebrating over there, Mr. I don't like the brickheads. What was the first Star Wars sets that Shane mentioned? The Star Wars brickheads. So, right back at you, David.
You can't argue with results, and it's all about the data.
You can't argue results. You can't argue with the expert either. If Shane's saying brickheads, Star Wars brickheads, then I'm liking those. If he's saying Boushh helmet, I'm liking that. Of course, I have to admit, if Shane's saying on the dioramas, keep an eye on them, then I'll keep an eye on them. I'll definitely take that under advisement. But yeah, Shane, I'm guilty. I like the dioramas, especially the first 3 that retired last year. I think there's something really special about those. And I've been saying for a long time, even if they're a longer hold time, the prices that I got them at, because they went on huge discount because they were way overpriced, I'm happy with that. And we'll see what happens.
You're going to do fine, 100%. Like the discounts that we saw on those sets they were a steal. And like what was the Death Star trash compactor? It was like 40, 42 or something like that during the Black Friday sales. Was it even lower than 42? It was heavily discounted, and people who got it at that price are going to do great, especially if you sell on Amazon. On eBay, it'll still get up there. eBay typically is a little bit lower prices. Now, I do want to add a caveat about, in support of David's perspective on the brickheads. And my caveat is this: even though it was the first Star Wars sets that I mentioned, I'm probably not going to buy that many of them. If we want to talk about put your money where your mouth is, reality is I don't really go heavy on brickheads because they're a hard theme to buy in quantity. So I think it depends on where people are in their business. If you are someone who wants to scale this thing big time, the way I typically try to approach it is get sets that are scalable in terms of the quantities you can get. I like to buy 100 of a set, and it's hard to get that in brickheads. If I go to the Lego stores every week, of course I'll get there. Am I willing to put in the hours and the miles to do that? No. Even if it is a 30% higher ROI that I can get on another set when I'm sitting at home placing orders in my underwear. So that's the way I kind of think about it. It's like I want scalability and high return on investment, but I'll give up a little bit of return on investment for scalability. And brickheads at scale is difficult, even though they are some of the highest performers. Anyone watching this who is starting out, brickheads are amazing. They're phenomenal. And not every set, again, law of averages, on average, they can be great. Not every set's going to be great. You got to get them at the right price, get them during the promos and different things like that. Often I find the members in Ignite, for example, actually don't buy a lot of brickheads. They buy some, and a lot of people do go deep on them, but it's definitely harder to go scale.
That's been one of my biggest takeaways recently too, is getting great discounts at scale. My first serious year investing, 2022, there were those Kohl's deals from Kohl's online. And the quantities on those, I mean, you could add 20 Star Wars play sets at 40% off, plus further discount stacking to your cart, and they'd ship in a huge box the size of a fridge.
Mandalorian Starship, Armored Assault Tank.
Those were the sets that I would say gave me confidence that this really does work at scale, that I really can sell $10,000 on eBay in a single year, in a single Q4. When you think about scalability, that's one of the most exciting things about moving to Amazon, and what generally about Lego investing is that it is scalable, has the best margins of almost anything you can do.
Yeah, that's important to point out, because in my journeys, me and my wife have done a lot of selling online of different items. Like we had a book warehouse where we sold used books. We sold shoes, we've sold kitchen items, we've sold other toys. And the reason we've pivoted our entire business all around Lego is because of those margins. It is because Lego prices go up over time, supply becomes finite, sellers cannot replenish inventory. And so it's the best feeling ever, because you're not in a penny war. And anyone who's watching this who is a reseller, you sell other things, especially on Amazon with books and different things. There's this undercutting of the price that is never ending, because all of those sellers can go and get more of the thing. And if all the sellers can get as much as they want and replenish, it just causes this never ending race to the bottom on the price. So your margins get thinner and thinner. But the beauty of Lego investing is that appreciation that happens over time, and the fact that the margins get bigger over time. So if you learn to get a great discount in the beginning, you already have a small margin, and then the price starts to grow on the set, so your margin grows and grows and grows. And then if you're a little bit lazy some month where you're planning on selling something but you decide not to, maybe next month the price is going to be even higher. So what's the rush? That's all great benefits to have as a reseller online, because vast majority of e-commerce business owners out there do not have that luxury.
Kevin, did you pick up any of the retired sets or any of the sets that were pushed back? And what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, so I picked up 2 of the midi scale Star Destroyers, 1 Ghost, and 1 gunship. 3 of those 4 are going to get opened and built anyways. So there are still some Star Wars sets that I am interested in. I do like some of the brickheads. I also still like the Mos Eisley Cantina, even though I didn't get any. And then getting down a little further, yes, the helmets for me, the 332nd battle pack that we talked about. And then the other one that I do want to take a closer look at are those 3 mechs. And I think that can actually help them in the long run. I've been watching the buzz closely from all the videos that I've watched. You know, a lot of hate for them. Some people saying, hey, they're flying under the radar. But if you look on Amazon, I think the Stormtrooper mech is doing like 5,000 a month, something like that. So there's a lot of sales volume. And I think there's going to be enough demand around them. You know, some mechs and other themes, original mechs, did really well. Now I feel like we're kind of having mech fatigue in all of LEGO at this point. But Star Wars mechs, that's a new sub-theme. And Star Wars sub-themes, the first wave, historically have done quite well. And the fact that they just came out with official images of Luke's mech, which I think is really cool, actually. That's a neat little set. And so I think those mechs, you know, can have some runway. So I'm going to look at them, but I don't want to pay $15 for them. I want to pay like 9 or 10. So Dave, those are my thoughts. What are you thinking?
Some of the same sets I'm also considering. I want to begin with the end in mind. So when I do my purchasing this year, I want to think about where am I going to sell these sets? How am I going to sell these sets? Probably on Amazon, most of them, since that's the best blend of scalability and the highest price. So whatever the data is telling me, lately there's been a lot of talk of the Slave One microfighter that's gone on an amazing discount. Also, you have that Mandalorian N1 microfighter. That one's flying under the radar a little bit since it's from a newer IP. It's not from the original trilogy the way Slave One is. So that's definitely on my list. I'm a little bit scared of sub-themes becoming obsolete and going out of favor. Dioramas. So I'm thinking of sticking a little bit closer to the play sets this year with those exclusive minifigures driving demand and the clone army building aspect. So 332nd, I'm right there. We had the Coruscant Guard gunship get delayed. So that's a clone army set I won't be investing in this year, maybe next year. I'm going to keep my cards a little close to my chest this early in the year, but I'll certainly be looking at the whole list. And maybe, like we've been saying all along, Star Wars is going to be less of a key component in our investing strategy this year since there are such good opportunities elsewhere. And since pretty much all the best heavy hitters have been pushed back.
You don't have to keep your cards close to your chest. We all know you're going for that Chewbacca.
There will not be a single Chewbacca.
I'm convinced it's going to be the sleeper investment because we all hate it. Like, I hate that set so much. I have to get up early in the morning just to hate it. But it's going to be, it's going to be avoided by everyone in the community. And then there's going to be a lack of supply out there and we're all going to be shocked.
So before Kevin goes, because I know he has to, Shane, you're going to be the arbitrator for us. Kevin and I disagreed on the UCS Luke's Landspeeder. Kevin thought that it's such a meme, nobody's buying it. The supply is going to be so low that maybe it'll actually turn out to be a decent investment. Do you have thoughts?
I hate that set with a passion in terms of the design. It's lacking creativity. It's lacking detail, such a flat look to it. However, I've learned to be a little bit cautious about, and this is the same mentality, the reason I just said what I said about Chewbacca. I've learned to be a little bit cautious about thinking that the look and the design or lack of nice design on a Star Wars set is going to cause it to not be a good investment. The demand for Star Wars sets comes from a multitude of different places. It's not always about how the set looks. And even if it was, it's subject to everyone's opinion, of course. But it's an iconic scene. When I think about A New Hope anyway, there's that and there's the trench run Death Star scene. Those are the two like big things that stick out of my mind about that entire film. So for that reason alone, it could continue to have some demand. I haven't personally looked at the actual numbers in terms of like how well it's selling and everything. So I'd be able to give a much more educated answer after I do that. But gut feeling is I don't like it. I will not invest in it, but I will not be surprised if it does surprise.
And then to add kind of my position on that is it's definitely a discount set for me. And I'm definitely not going deep, but if the right discount was out there, I would probably pick up a few.
When you compare it to another UCS set of similar price, pick one, any of them, does it seem a little underwhelming? Even if you don't hate it, does it get overshadowed by its peers? If I'm buying 3 UCS sets, is it one of my 3?
Yep.
Those are some questions that I kind of ask myself that make me wonder. I literally just published a video a couple of days ago where I looked at the last 9 years of UCS sets and talked about the prices over time. 9 retirees. And the thing that's interesting is even if they don't perform well in year one, they can tend to pick up some steam later on because the collectability factor is there years later, right? People are still looking for the X-Wing that was retired back in 2016 today, you know, so we still have the sustained kind of demand very long into the future. I don't think we have the same longevity in Duplo sets or maybe Minecraft and Ninjago and stuff. A lot of those playability based sets wouldn't keep longevity 8 years into retirement as much. UCS sets, people still want them. So if you're willing to have a longer hold time and you can get a good price, it could totally be fine. There's question marks in my mind.
Oh, there are question marks.
To offset that though, just operationally, you have more challenges when you're thinking of holding a set for 5, 6, 7, 8 years in terms of how good is your climate control in your warehouse. Oh, maybe you're just getting by. You live in a temperate part of the world and you're not climate controlled. Do you have pests? Are those glue seals going to come loose? That becomes a real concern the longer your hold time. And so I think a lot of people don't think about that. They think, oh, great, I'll buy one, I'll throw it in the closet, and I'll sell it in 10 years. Like, what will that box condition be in 10 years?
Plus, we don't like waiting 10 years because compounding your inventory is how you really build it into something big. So,
yeah.
And the only way we compound in Lego investing is by selling, right? Turnover, that's what we want. Waiting 10 years is not going to be in your best interest.
Yeah. Also, unrealized gains, you never know when something could get re-released or outside factors can affect the value. And if you haven't realized those gains, they're all just paper gains. They don't mean anything.
That happened to Slave One. Like, if you look at Slave One, it's a phenomenal performer, no doubt, but the release of other Slave Ones after the fact slowed it down. Like we had the 40th anniversary,
the 20th anniversary,
20th anniversary of Star Wars and Lego's partnership after the UCS version, and then we have another one, right? The Boba Fett Starship. So UCS had substitutes. It's not another UCS version, but it's other substitutes that Slave One fans can go to instead, and that could slow it down. So even if they don't do another UCS Landspeeder, if you hold it 10 years, there's going to be other Landspeeders. You can almost guarantee it. Yep.
Thank you, Shane, for joining us. This was really interesting. Hopefully the viewers enjoyed it, although I do not endorse your UCS Landspeeder view, Kevin. I'm going to make that very clear. That's going to do it for today's episode of BrickTalk. Feel free to leave your comments down below.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me on. This is a ton of fun. Definitely want to do more together. Having the three of us in one place, absolutely amazing. And yeah, free month for anybody who wants to come and check out Ignite in the description down below. So thank you, guys. And we'll hopefully link up again soon.
Thank you so much for watching. We will see you again soon.